Okay, here we are at Midori Farms, community farm again. It's the month of June now. It's our second community farm event. And this is where we're going to be growing sweet potatoes this year with a kind of interactive program for people to come out and participate and learn about farming and appreciate nature and have a good time at the same time. You'll notice we're not wearing masks today. The restrictions have been lessened, so we decided, okay, we'll just be responsible and safe without masks today. So what I'm going to take you through is basically the procedures for planting a sweet potato. We have these sweet potatoes that we bought, and to remind you, for those of you who don't remember, or for those who didn't attend last time, sweet potatoes are grown actually from sweet potatoes. So what you do is you take a whole sweet potato and you can bury it in soil or in a glass of water, and you wait. And in about a month or two, little sprouts will come out and form what we call slips, S-L-I-P-S, slips. And these slips are basically sweet potato vines. And they'll have little tiny roots, hairy roots at the bottom of them. And you gently break them away from the sweet potato, put those in a cup of water or in a pot of soil, and you keep it watered. And then in a couple of weeks, you have a nice plant to plant out in your garden or in your farm. And that's what we've done here. We've grown some of our own, and we've bought a lot as well. We've got several different kinds. These are called Purple Sweet Road, and actually they're purple inside. So I'm going to take this up closer to the camera so you can see what they look like. Purple Sweet Road. And it's a nice plant. It's going to be doing well, I think. We're going to put it in the ground and then water them in, and we'll see how they do. So in order to plant your sweet potatoes, of course, you're going to need a shovel. So we'll move this tray here. We're going to put our sweet potato plant right here. What we first do is we break through the plastic, just like that. Then we make a nice hole for ourselves, just like that. And I like to make the hole a little bit bigger than it needs to be, because that'll give the plant some growing room right away, so it can spread its roots pretty easily into the soil, gather up nutrients, and start making its own tubers. So I pull that soil out like that, pull my sign out, and I'm going to squeeze together the pot a little bit just so the soil holds together. Do my Mr. Spock like that, flip it over, and you can see there's already a lot of nice root formation here. We're going to put that into the ground just like that. Carry the surrounding soil onto it, and then put the rest of our soil just like that. Now, some of you may be wondering, why do I have this black plastic here? Which is a good question. If you visit my other fields or see some of my photos, you'll see that actually I don't have this black plastic anywhere else. I only use it when I have a new field, and that's because the weed seeds and the weeds themselves are growing so fiercely that we won't be able to keep up with them, because we're a volunteer farm. We've got volunteers who help us out, and I can only come 3 days a week, which just isn't enough time to accomplish all the jobs and do the weeding. So when we have a new farm, we like to use this just 1 year to kind of kill all the seeds that are in there and the weeds that are growing up, to give us a head start. And then next year we won't use any black plastic at all, because obviously it's a lot of waste at the end of the year because it's all single-use plastic, which we hate. But like I said, this year it's kind of the lesser of two evils. So, and then we're going to space our plants about 50 centimeters apart, or about 1.5 feet. And we're going to just go right down the center, make our hole just like that. And this soil is nice and soft, because at the last event, and subsequently from the last event, what we did was we worked the soil really well with pitchforks and shovels, and we loosened it up really, really well. And then we added some cow manure and some compost, and then we mixed it all up together, so it creates a really great growing medium for these sweet potatoes. They'll have a lot of food and a lot of space, and all the organic matter is going to hold moisture, so it's going to give them enough water so that they can grow really big and healthy. So again, we're going to squeeze the pot together just a little bit, do our Mr. Spock move, just like that, Nice root formation already. That's a good sign. And then just carry the soil on. And then what I sometimes like to do is I just give it a little bit of a push, which creates a little bit of a low spot right here. So then when it does rain and water collects, it'll tend to collect more around the base of the plant, giving that a little bit of extra water. I'll do my third one here. Same thing, just loosening up the soil, making the hole in the plastic, giving it a bigger hole than it needs to. And I tell you, I'm seeing a lot of worms in this soil, which is really great for the farm. The worms really help to turn the soil, bringing up nutrients from deep down, creating irrigation, as well as what they can, after they consume the decaying plant matter, their castings or feces are really, really good for the soil and the plants. So worms are our good friends out here. We call them our fellow farmers. So that's how we're planting those out. And you can see we have some other varieties of plant here. This one is Kintoki. And I'll take that up to the front here so you can see Kintoki. And the plant looks very similar. The leaves might be a little slightly different color, or the stem's a slightly different color, but all in all, most sweet potatoes grow pretty much the same. You have loads and loads of different varieties. So I'll show you how to plant this one out. Let's see. Maybe if I plant this one out here, you can actually see me. Here we go. Again, getting into that nice loose soil like that. The reason we like nice loose soil is the plants can grow much easier in it, especially something like a sweet potato. All plants have roots that need to penetrate into the soil, but sweet potatoes and carrots and daikon radishes and things like that, well, they're putting what we eat actually into the soil. So if we make the soil nice and soft and rich for them, what they put into the soil will grow a lot more easily and a lot larger. And also it'll be easier to harvest. For a couple of years, I've had sweet potatoes that grow really well, but unfortunately the soil isn't so soft. So what they do end up is being impacted in the soil. And I have a really hard time getting them out, and I often break them off, which is a real tragedy for sweet potatoes. So before you plant your sweet potatoes, you want to make sure you mix your soil as best you can. And again, work in some of that organic matter like manures and composts to really give them a good feed, as well as a good base for nutrients and a home for worms, as well as the ability to hold moisture better. So again, I'll scoop out this soil, making a space for a new plant, give it a squeeze, Mr. Spock. Decent root growth, well, that's good. And away we go again. There we go. All right. And that's all there is to that. So, as you can see, I've got a lot of volunteers out here today. Ernie, maybe you'd like to come over. The microphone's right here. Yeah. So, Ernie, where are you from?
I'm from New Zealand.
Yeah, and what are you doing in Japan?
I am helping you on your farm today. Doing lots of things in Japan, actually. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming out, and I hope you're having fun.
I am. Always having fun.
Excellent. Okay, good. And who else we got out here? Liam, the man in the great shroud. Come on over and join us for a little convo, if you don't mind. Hey, Liam, where are you from?
Liverpool in England.
Oh, are you a Beatles fan?
Oh God, the usual question. Yeah, of course. Yeah. John Lennon's my cousin.
Well, John Lennon's your cousin. Sorry for your loss. So what do you do in Japan?
I make software. I'm a software developer over with that gentleman over there.
Owen, yeah. So how do you like being out on the farm and in nature like this?
It's good, yeah. It's better than, it's good balance to sit in front of a computer screen all the time.
Well, thanks a lot for coming out and helping out.
That's all right. Thanks for inviting us.
All right, cool. And Haruka-san. So, where are you from?
I come from Osaka.
And why is your English so good?
Because I live in Osaka?
Osaka people, your Japanese Osaka people are English. Oh, very good. That's great. And you brought your kids out today too.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. She's 2 years old.
How old is Ayaha?
She's 2 years old.
2 years old.
Yes.
She's
Yay.
great. Do you think the kids are enjoying themselves?
Yes, they are. Mm.
Well, thanks for bringing them and thanks for coming.
Thanks for the invite. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Owen, you want to come over? No? Okay, well, Owen's a great help to us. He's working too hard. Junior, you come on over. Maybe you guys remember this guy. What's your name?
Junior,
And where do you live?
Kyoto.
And what are you doing here today?
Just coming for fun.
Just for fun? Are you helping?
Yeah, or trying to find creatures.
Creatures. What kind of creatures do you want to find?
I guess I wanna try to catch a frog, and it is hard. And I wanna see that turtle again.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks for helping today. Hello. We have some newcomers now. We're in our Zoom meeting, so please join. Okay, I'm going to check and see what time it is. Does anybody know what time it is, Nanji? 11? 15. Arigato. Oh, so we got 5 more minutes. That's great. Before we take our questions and answers, okay? So I'm going to explain a little bit more about what we do with this black plastic, because maybe some of you will need to use it someday. So again, it's not something we love using. It's much better to just weed yourself, but it's a toss-up whether it's a better alternative to spraying. I think it is a little bit better because the sprays that you use to kill weeds often run off the farm into the rivers and lakes and ponds and surrounding ecosystems and kill other wildlife, which we don't like. The plastic is not much better, and I won't say I love the plastic, but again, it's something that's necessary this year because we can't keep up with the weeds this year. They're just too strong. So if you are going to use the plastic, what I recommend is you get some of these stakes like this. Some of these stakes. What you do is you lay your plastic out and then you can hammer these in. And because they have these ridges on them, they really hold in the soil well, so that holds your plastic down. I've found that these are not very useful here in the mountains because the wind is just too strong for them. The wind will still just rip them right up. So I talked to the local people and they've taught me well. Put these in first to hold it down and then dig trenches all the way along your plastic. Bury the edge down under the ground and then put the soil back on top. I'll show you what I mean. They've already done it here, but I'm going to take this stake out like this. I'm going to take my hoe and I'm going to dig myself a nice little trench. Just like that. Pull the dirt away. Put my plastic down in that trench. Recover it with that soil that I just pulled out of there and press it down nice and hard. And that is how you really bury the edge of your plastic. The winds won't bother that at all. And this is the same way I bury the edge of my floating row covers. And you might check out my YouTube videos and see what floating row covers are, why they're useful and why I use them and how I use them. So I really recommend it. So what we've got here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 beds of sweet potatoes. And we've got 5 different kinds. And we've separated them into different kinds so that we can, when we harvest them, that's a lot easier. If you mix up your plants when you harvest them, sometimes you forget which is which. And it's nice to keep track because you might find out that, oh, these Purple Road didn't do so well, but these Kintoki did really well. And you can then use that next year, like, well, let's plant more Kintoki because they do really well. Or this one Purple Road did really well. So from that sweet potato, we're gonna grow our slips for next year. We keep it. And that's one way farmers really get to be sustainable, is they take their strongest, best crops and they keep the seeds or the vegetable and reproduce it for next year. That way, every year, your plants get better and better. Yeah, it's good. And so we're going to be planting these out for the next 30, 40 minutes. But what you also might see is some posts that go around this farm. And what these posts are for is for keeping the deer out. We have some fencing that we're going to be putting up after we finish planting out. The monkeys, they love to eat the sweet potatoes themselves, but the deer like to come in and eat the plants. So this is going to be just a deer fence for us. So we're going to try our best to keep them out. So I think it's probably about 11:20. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking some questions. I'm going to unmute microphones and read your text. So let's do that.
Hello, Chuck.
Hello.
Hello, this is Neil from Osaka.
Hi, Neo.
Hi. I couldn't make it to get there, so
That's okay.
with my son, and then I'm just I just got interested in the planting, so I want to enjoy your nature. So I don't have any questions. I don't know about that.
Well, thank you for joining us. Do you have any questions about the English words you didn't understand or something?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I love watching your nature around here, there.
Oh, thanks so much, Neo.
Okay.
Please ask me anything anytime.
Thank you.
Okay. How about anybody else
Chuck,
have a question?
Yeah, Chuck, can you hear me?
Yeah, Raj, no problem.
Hey, buddy. It looks like in the chat, Luisa and Cesar asked, generally what type of seeds are used? Are they hybrid or heirloom seeds? And where do you buy them?
About sweet potatoes, as I mentioned before, you grow sweet potatoes from sweet potatoes. So you don't have any seeds per se. Same is true with potatoes. You grow potatoes from potatoes. And as far as I know, there aren't really any GMO or even hybrid potatoes, but they must have some potatoes that they, cultivate and make special because or they keep certain stock or breed for certain characteristics. But it's not quite the same as a hybrid. A hybrid is when a scientist or a farmer takes two different varieties and somehow puts them together. Sometimes through grafting and sometimes through selective breeding and things like that. Actually, I don't know very much about that. But for sweet potatoes, we feel like we're always buying heirloom, organic, sustainable sweet potato plants and sweet potatoes, because even if they haven't been grown organically, we grow them organically. So even if we buy a start from the shop or something like that that has been given a few chemicals to fight off diseases or chemical fertilizers or something like that, well, we put it into our nice natural organic soil and it doesn't have any more chemicals after that. So we feel like we give it the best chance to be an organic vegetable. And then next year, we'll keep some of our baby plants or some of our sweet potatoes from this year, and we will allow them to reproduce slips, and then we'll plant those out next year. The only reason we didn't do that this year was because last year we planted our sweet potatoes on an old rice field that got way too much water. And I didn't know this, but when sweet potatoes get too much water, they put out beautiful leaves. I mean, I thought I was going to have tons and tons of sweet potatoes, but when I dug them up for the tubers, there were like 3, because too much water means they put out great leaves, but they don't set tubers. So that was lesson learned last year, and that's why I had to buy out all my starts this year. So I hope that answers your question. So anybody else? Maybe have a question for Junia? Oh, you're welcome, Luisa and Caesar. I can see your message now.
So, Junia, have you been enjoying going up to the farm? I know that you just started school recently, but has it been fun?
Junia, Raj, you remember Raj? He's asking you, do you enjoy going up to the farm?
A little bit yes, a little bit no.
Just a second. They can't hear you. Can you say again?
A little bit yes, a little bit not.
So what about since you started school? Would you prefer to be in school or up at the farm? Talk into there.
School.
You'd rather be in school.
Yeah,
How come?
because there was no school and then now there's school, so I think school is better.
Do you like school?
Yeah, very much.
You're good at school, right?
Yeah.
Raj, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if he was enjoying getting up to the farm and getting his,
I think
his hands
I
dirty.
think Junior enjoys it. He just pretends he doesn't because I make him do some work. You know, he just wants to play. But he's a good worker. This year he got to come up a lot because school was off, of course, because of the coronavirus. He was off school for 2.5 months. And he was able to come about 10 or 11 times during that time. And he really could learn a lot on the farm and have some fun too, I think. Draw some pictures, start making a journal, things like that. Okay?
I was
Okay.
wondering, I may have missed it in the beginning. Is everything
What should I do now?
is everything in season right now, or are there specific things that are happening
Just to,
that you're
could
actually
you help
able to
them
harvest
plant sweet potatoes?
versus?
Go to where. Oh, sorry, just a second, Raj. Gina, why don't you go over to where Louis and Baptiste are and ask them what to do. They'll help you.
Who's Baptiste?
Baptiste is the guy in the pointy hat.
Oh, okay.
Thanks. Sorry, Raj. Your question was, is everything in season now? Right?
Yeah. What's in season right now?
What's in season right now? That's a good question. I think a lot of people don't realize the seasons of the food. I mean, some people know, oh gosh, in the wintertime we eat a lot of nabe in Japan, so Chinese cabbage and green onions and daikon radishes must be a winter vegetable, which they are. But also we can go to the supermarket in the winter and buy tomatoes, which are a summer vegetable. It's actually a fruit. So right now in our climate, what's in season now is tomatoes and cucumbers and eggplants and peppers and things of that nature are elementary school teenage kind of plants. They're not really fully grown. They're not really producing yet, where it's a little bit too cool here. So it's now warm, but the warm season has just begun like a month ago. So it hasn't given our plants enough time to really start. So if you'd visit my farms, you'd see all of them are quite small, but growing. So it'll take them about a month to really start producing. So that's for the summer vegetables. So what I'm growing right now a lot is loads of lettuce. My cabbages are really popping right now. My carrots are really good. I've got a lot of green onions. My kale and chard, which grows all year, is of course doing well. And my beans and my peas are starting to come. Well, they've been coming for a while actually. So, and I've harvested my first round of potatoes, regular potatoes, mainly due to the monkeys that came and ate a lot of the new potatoes. So I was forced to harvest those. And some herbs. I have a lot of mint. Mint is pretty much an all year long kind of plant. And I have Italian parsley, coriander. But the coriander, actually, it's a little too warm now. It's starting to bolt and go to seed. And my okra is now growing. And yeah, I think that's about it. I've just started planting some corn in seed trays, which is little tiny containers where to grow a baby plant, and then you transplant that either into the farm or into a larger pot, which then later on you plant into the farm. So my corn, it's the first time I've grown corn in 5 or 6 years, because I finally have an electric fence for the monkeys, which love it. So hopefully I can actually eat some of my corn this year. So. I hope that answers your question, Raj. And yeah, does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, this is Chirag I'm joining from Tokyo.
Oh, hello, Chirag.
So, hi. So my question is, so what is the bulk? So I understand that you're farming organically. What is the bulk of your method for fertilization? How do you fix nitrogen into the soil? I know that in Japan there's a lot of use of chemical fertilizers. So what are you relying on? Are you making local networks in which you can get sort of byproduct from some other farming or some other materials?
That's an excellent question. And can you help me with your name? Chirag? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, Chirag.
Oh,
yes.
good. Okay. Thanks for your question. It's a really good one. what most people don't realize, I'm just going to back up a little bit to explain why nitrogen is so important. Plants are green because of chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is the molecule that allows plants to collect sunlight and turn it into energy for the plant. That's the basis of all life on our planet, essentially. Well, chlorophyll is made from mainly nitrogen. So nitrogen is a very important element or nutrient to put into your farm to help your plants grow. Of course, you can have an excess of nitrogen and your plants won't do so well, but plants will need a certain amount of nitrogen every year to grow. Nitrogen is one of the main ingredients in fertilizers, whether it be organic or chemical. Nitrogen is the first number you'll see on the bag. So if you see like a 10-10-5, that means 10 parts nitrogen. So the way that many organic farmers go about getting nitrogen is to do composting, to use manures, and to rotate crops like legumes, which can be clover that you can't eat, or peas and beans and peanuts, which you can eat. And what those do is those are actually nitrogen fixers. And what you can do is if managed well, you can plant those in your garden or in your farm and cut them early and work them into the soil, and they'll have fixed the nitrogen already into the soil. So I do a little bit of that. And Chirag, let me explain, first of all, I'm not a professional nor an educated farmer. I mean, I taught myself and I continue to learn by mistake and internet and everything else. But what I'm doing is a mixture of all different things. I do purchase manures. There's a local dairy farm where I can get cow manure delivered without packaging locally, which I think is a pretty sustainable option for now. And sometimes I buy chicken manure because it has a very high nitrogen content, but I really limit the amount of chicken manure that I buy these days. And I've also got a really big composting program going now, and I use a lot of my own homemade compost. And fortunately, last year I found a place where I can purchase compost when I'm short of it. So again, fertility is a very important thing on the farm. And because the better I get with farming, the more vegetables I want to grow. And every year I grow more and more vegetables, and they consume more and more nitrogen, so that actually, nitrogen in the soil and putting the nitrogen back into the soil is very, very important. So what I'm doing right now is like I said, for the sweet potatoes, is I worked in compost and cow manure into the soil. So hopefully that'll be enough to feed those sweet potatoes. And I think it will be. And again, the worms, when you get a lot of worms in your soil, they circulate nutrients themselves, and they create nutrients themselves from eating dead plant matter, and their castings are a very, very healthy source of nitrogen and other minerals. So yeah, it's a good question. Nitrogen in the soil for me is always organic, which means composts, manures, and crop rotation with legumes.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Chirag.
Thank you.
No worries. Good question. Okay, are there any other questions before we get back to work? No, I don't see anybody coming forward. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to work a little bit. I'm actually going to take you guys. Oh, sorry. Another question?
Sorry. I would like to ask you. I live in Osaka. This is this is a concrete jungle here.
Concrete jungle.
And I never plant vegetable or fruit at home. But if I can start something, what kind of vegetable or fruit can I grow easily at a small space?
Well, Nail, first of all, do you have any pets?
No.
Okay. Well, a vegetable plant that you're growing in a container is like a pet. And just like a pet, you have to take good care of it almost every day. So before anybody starts growing on their balcony, Junior, I need that. Why did you move that? Okay. So basically, watering is one of the most important issues for plants. People plant the plant and they leave it outside and they forget to water it and it dies. That's happened to me. It's happened to probably just about everybody who's tried with a plant. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is before you do any sort of planting, be ready to take care of it like it's a pet, especially with watering. But I would say one of the easiest things to grow is something like lettuce and herbs. So it's a leafy green vegetable that basically it needs a lot of water, and it needs good soil and sunlight. And that's about it. It's nothing that needs any sort of trellising like a tomato or a cucumber, which needs like a stick or a structure to grow on or a cage. And it's not like something that's going to get eaten by a lot of insects. Some things eat lettuce and green and leafy green plants, but not a lot, actually, not a lot. So I'd say lettuces, and you can actually go to the shop and you can buy yourself a a pack of salad mix, which you grow as, or baby leaf lettuce, they also call it. And so you can just get yourself a long container, like something that's about 40 or 50 centimeters long, about 20 centimeters wide, and about 20 or 30 centimeters deep. And you fill that with some potting soil. And if you can get it, you can find some compost to put in there as well. Or even some manure, some cow manure maybe, mix it in. And then you just put your seeds on top and you give it a good watering. And then your plant should grow just fine for you. In the summertime, lettuce doesn't do so well. It doesn't like a lot of direct sun and heat. So you might want to wait until about September to plant your lettuce seeds. Another one that's pretty easy to grow is radishes. But I'd say that do the lettuce first because it's super simple. And then when your lettuce comes up, you can just go about 2 or 3 centimeters above the soil and just give it a haircut. Like cut the lettuce that's taller than 2 or 3 centimeters. And then what's going to happen in about a week, that lettuce is just going to come right back. And it's just going to keep growing for you all winter long.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, Nao. It's a good question. I think a lot of people want to be new-time gardeners. And what I don't like is when they do try, they go through all the work to do stuff, and then they fail and they lose hope and they lose confidence and they give up. I have a friend who lives in Tokyo. We're Facebook friends. We've never met, but his name is John Walsh. And he's an urban gardener, and he has programs, I think online as well as you can attend them. So if you look him up, it's JON WALSH, John Walsh. And yeah, he'd be the kind of person who would be able to answer all your questions because he does real courses in how to do rooftop gardens and balcony gardens and stuff like that. Okay.
I will check it out. And then
Oh, great, Nao.
Yeah, I see Haruka and Sachi. They are my
Yeah.
friends. And then please say hello. And I'd like to hello to them if I can.
Oh, sure. Oh, Haruka, this is Nao. She says hello.
Hello. Wow, thank you.
No, my pleasure. And Sachi's way over there. Can you see her in the hat?
Maybe blue one.
Sachi.
Sachi.
Nao says hello.
Hello. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Have a good day.
Yeah, we're having some fun today. I hope you can join us next time.
Yeah, next time.
Swimming.
Okay. Okay. We're going to go back to work now, but we'll reopen the question and answers in about 10 minutes, okay? Okay, we'll see everybody then. Let's see if I can figure out how to mute everybody. So we are back to work. We can see that a lot of the sweet potatoes are already planted out. And people are still burying the edges. So let's see if we can get back and help them. Hello. Okay, So as I said, we're planting these out under the plastic so we can keep the weeds down, and then we're going to put the fence around it. I think what's happened is, like I'd said earlier, the wind is getting pretty strong, so it's blowing up our plastic. So everyone has kind of shifted their jobs from planting to actually burying the edges of the plastic. So let's see if we can get everybody back on track by burying these, planting out these sweet potatoes. So here we go. Okay. We can start planting out these sweet potatoes, Erini and Haruka. You can start planting these sweet potatoes. Yep. And I think these are the same variety, right? Did you put these here? Okay. Well, they look the same, so let's consider them the same. Hello, Sachi. Nice to see you again. So we're going to be burying the sweet potato, planting the sweet potatoes. Any more shovels over there? Erini, any more shovels? There's a blue-green one there. Yep, there you go. Yeah, all right. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a little background of this place and the history of it. This is in a village north of Kyoto City, about 1 hour by car. It's really hard to come here by public transportation, so not a lot of people come up here, which is good and bad, I suppose. And I've been farming up here for over 12 years. I started with one small little garden to play around in, and now I've got 4 fields that I'm using as best I can. I'm engaging volunteers almost all year round, and I'm selling vegetables to about 20 to 30 customers in Kyoto City weekly, and doing events like this community farm event. And this one is on behalf of the Shiga NPO and Natsuhara grant that I received, because I applied to create this community farm. Basically because I find that the more I farm organically and spend time in nature, the more I want to share that with other people. And like I said, I started about 12 years ago when some people were talking about climate change, but it wasn't in the mainstream like it is today. So about 3 years ago, when things really started to become apparently bad, we thought, okay, well, this organic farming thing, there's something to it if we can make a go of it. And so I started creating events for people to come up and to learn about it, experiment, and have some fun. And I think one of the greatest impacts on people it has is giving them the chance to work hard outdoors, have some fun, and appreciate nature and the quiet peacefulness of it, the sound of the birds and the frogs, and you know, seeing, oh, don't dig him up, he was a bad guy. We buried somebody out here. Actually, no, this land belongs to a hunter who hunts deer, and yeah, these are all deer bones that we're finding. But anyway, it's become a real vocation for me, a real calling to try to spread the word about organic farming and appreciating nature. So having people come out like today and work for a couple hours under the sun with the dirt, getting dirty, planting up, doing something productive for an organic farmer. Then we're going to go and have a big barbecue lunch, and then maybe play in the river a little bit, or go up the mountain and do a little hiking, or maybe come back to the farm and do a little more work. We'll see how it goes. And then we're going to try to, pardon? Yeah, we do bury the ends. Yep. Same way. Yep. And yeah, there's also a solar eclipse today. I think it's starting around 4:30, ending around 6, and I think the peak is like 5:10. So at that time, we're going to try to set up our own little solar eclipse viewer, because of course you can't look directly at the sun, or you'll go blind or you damage your eyes. So we've looked online, and we're going to create a special tube that's going to help us, hopefully, to view the solar eclipse safely and enjoy that. But so basically, the mission of Midori Farm is now to not only create and sell vegetables, but also to teach people how to do it themselves, and to have a chance to come up and enjoy nature, and kind of appreciate the simpler things. Because I think if we are going to do anything about climate change, we need to learn that simpler ways are better, and that what's possible organically and locally, and how we could all live more simply and be have a less impact on the planet. So that is pretty much my main lesson for everyone today is if you don't have access to a garden or farm yourself, then please support people who do, because yeah, as the UN says, the small local organic farmers are really part of the solution for climate change. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. Does anybody have a watch on? Know what time? 11:48. Okay, great. Well, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera down towards the river to give everybody a different perspective, and then open up the questions and answers again to finish up everything. So excuse me while the camera jiggles around a little bit. Let's see, I'll walk out this way. As you can see, we're at the bottom of a slope here, going up to the mountaintop. And there are 5 or 6 terraced rice fields on either side here and here of the road. And actually the road that runs up straight here, that's where we go sledding in the wintertime. Traditionally, we have over 1 meter of snow for about 3 months. So it's a great place to come and go sledding with the kids and the families, and the grown-ups enjoy it just as much as the kids do. But with climate change on, last winter we only had about 30 centimeters, or about a foot, for about 3 weeks. So it was a real disappointing year for that. It's a real wake-up call for us. Whoever denies climate change can come up and see for themselves that it's really happening. And it encourages me more and more to do the organic farming thing and live more simply and help introduce other people to it. So this is the mountainside. And then as we slowly pan over here, we see the valley is actually quite narrow, because as soon as it gets flat, basically there's a river, which I'll walk down to now, and then the next mountain just goes straight up. So the area that I'm in is all full of these sorts of narrow valleys. And yeah, it's called Satoyama in Japanese, which is kind of the zone, geographical feature or region where the mountain meets the valley. It's that kind of transitional area, so that that's kind of a special area, because there's a bit of the mountain environment and atmosphere, there's a bit of the valley mountain atmosphere, and there's almost always a river down here. So it's a very vibrant ecosystem, and it's a wonderful place to have a farm, because the vegetables will grow very well in that sort of vibrant atmosphere. It's also quite a troublesome place to grow vegetables, because there's a lot of flora and fauna that come along and want to compete with your vegetables or eat your vegetables. So it's always a trade-off as to whether or not you're going to be able to do well in the Satoyama area with the farm. And some of the biggest pest problems that I have, starting with the smallest, are these orange cucumber beetles. And then I have these green caterpillars, these cabbage worms. Oh, they're awful. And the turnip sawfly larvae, they're pretty awful. And then, you know, basically it's the monkeys that are really kicking my butt. They get in my farm quite easily, no matter what. And like I said, this year I have an electric fence for the first year. So hopefully that'll keep them out. And that's why I'm going to try doing corn again, because that's one of their favorite foods I've found. They also love sweet potatoes. So on the sweet potato farm, I am going to put up a fence for the deer. I'm going to have to bulk it up when the sweet potatoes start to come ripe, because those buggers will come. They'll come for those sweet potatoes for sure. Even though it's right next to a hunter's house, they'll get on there somehow. Okay, here we are. I'm going to be able to walk down to the riverside and take some more of your nice questions, I hope. Let's see if I can unmute your microphones. Okay. Okay, I've asked you all if you'd like to unmute your microphones to go ahead and do so and to ask your questions. If you have trouble, I should be able to see your text questions, so just fire away.
I don't have any question, but the river is so beautiful.
Oh, it is,
I love to
yes.
be there.
And you can see right here, it gets to be about 1 meter deep. So
Ooh.
probably after we finish eating lunch, the kids will come down here to splash and play.
Really nice. Uh,
And one thing I didn't mention, especially for you, Nao, is I will be doing these events every month.
Oh,
So
really?
Yes, we will do one in July and August and September. And during those months, it's probably perfect weather for getting in the river. And this is just one of the nice places to go swimming. It's not even the biggest or the best, but it's easy to access from the campground.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, yeah, we have a question.
Yeah, I'm Momoe. Hi, I'm Momoe, Chirag's wife.
Hi, Momoe.
Hi, and we are planting basil at the moment. Can you see this?
Let me see. What is it now?
Basil.
Okay, yep.
And the problem is the speed of growth is really slow. And I think these lack of nutrition. So this morning I added the dried coffee grounds.
Okay.
And Treg is thinking to add eggshells in the future as well. So we don't know how to take care of this properly. So actually we planted this last month. So I think the growing speed is really slow, isn't it?
Well, let me ask you a few questions. First of all, where are you keeping them?
Inside the house, because our condominium is really small, and we have a veranda, but the sunlight is really strong. Sometimes I put it outside, but I think a few hours later the soil completely dry. So I have to water again.
And what did you fill your containers with?
Compost.
Yes, mainly compost.
From the shop.
From the 100 shop. I don't think the quality is not good. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I've never bought compost from the 100 yen store. I'm glad they have it. Let's see. Well, basil, like any other plant, needs the right elements. It needs enough water, enough sunlight, enough temperature, and enough soil nutrients. So growing basil inside is tricky because it may not be getting enough light.
I see.
Basil is the kind of plant that can grow in full sun. So you want at least 6, if not 8 hours of sunlight or light a day for those plants to really grow. So I would say go ahead and risk it. Put them out on the balcony. See how they go. Especially if they'll get enough sun. They'll tell you, when they're thirsty. They'll tell you when it's too hot or anything like that. And also, do you keep your air conditioner on?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. So they're probably not too cold. See, basil hates cold.
I see.
So you must know it that if you harvest basil, that you can't keep it in the refrigerator. You have to keep it like a cut flower. You have to put it in a vase of water or something like that. Otherwise, they die. And so if it gets too cold for them, if they don't get enough light, or if they dry out, or if they don't have enough nutrition, of course, it's going to slow their growth. Show me them again. I want a close-up.
Okay.
Okay, Nao-san, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Thanks for joining. Bye.
I know the name Chirag in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And then wife, sorry, I forgot the name.
Momoya.
Momoyo-san.
Momoya.
Momoya.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Okay, nice to meet you. Mata ne.
Mata ne, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, let's see what we got. So I see some true leaves coming up,
Yes.
but a lot of seed leaves as well. So yeah, they're going slowly. You're right. They're pretty slow.
Mhm.
I think it might be due to just sunlight. So like I said, it's not too terribly hot these days, and
Mhm.
it's a sunny day today.
Mm.
Go ahead and put them out in the sun
Mm.
and see how they go. Give them a good watering first,
Okay.
and then see how they go. What a lot of people try to do is water from the bottom. So you basically put your seed tray or your small container into a bucket or a bath of water from the bottom, not all the way. And so the soil below soaks up the water.
Mm.
And then what that does is it encourages the roots to find the water,
Mm.
and it leaves the top of the soil kind of sealed off from losing water when you
Mm.
put it outside.
Mm.
So there's a lot of different tricks you can use, but I'd say just water them as normal before you put them outside. Like water them, for example, now,
Mm.
and then give it 5 or 10 minutes for the water to sink in, and then put them out in the sun as best you can, and just watch them every 2 hours and see how they're reacting, because they'll probably just not change at all. But if
Mm.
they start wilting or browning, then you want to bring them back in because the sun is too strong for them.
Mm.
But basil is pretty strong plant. For sunlight, that is, not for cold, but for sunlight. So I think if you go ahead and put them out there, they should do a much better.
Mm-hmm. So coffee grounds and the eggshells are good for this basil?
Well,
No.
eggshells, in my experience, eggshells are good for some things. Again, you'll have to forgive me. I'm not a professional nor
Yeah.
educated farmer, so I don't know everything, and you can please double check me online. But in my experience, eggshells benefit things that are fruits, like tomatoes and cucumbers and squash, because it puts a little calcium in the soil, which
Right.
helps with blossom end rot, which is when you get a tomato or a cucumber and it gets a flower on one side, and that flower side just turns brown. And that means there's often a lack of calcium in your soil. So I'm not sure if eggshells will help the basil or not. I don't think it would hurt it, so I don't think it's a problem, but I don't know if it'll fix anything. Coffee grounds, of course, are extremely high in nitrogen. So you want to make sure that you don't put too many, and that you mix them really, really well with your soil, so that, because if a root is touching too much coffee grounds, it may actually get burned.
I see.
I don't think that's necessarily happening to your plants. I can't tell, but that would be my guess, is as long as the coffee grounds are well mixed in the soil, it'll give it a good nitrogen feed, but not too much. And that's pretty much true for anything that you're adding to your soil. Not too much, and mix it in really, really well if you can.
Okay. We will
One
do
way
that.
to give, one thing that I do is make compost tea, which is when you take a net full of compost and you submerge it in water like a tea bag. And I use an aerator pump like you use for fish tanks to give it a lot of oxygen so that compost bacteria spreads throughout the water. And then I water my plants with that water, and it gives them a little bit of food and a whole lot of that composting bacteria, which is really good for the ecosystem of your container or your farm or your garden or whatever. And it really helps to build nutrition and strengthens the soil. So I think that just like you drink a cup of coffee, you could give your plants like a weak cup of coffee that's not hot, of course, or has milk or sugar, but just a weak cooled cup of coffee that you make from the old grounds, and try watering them that way. And that gives them, because the plants will be able to take that nitrogen up much faster because it's in liquid soluble form. Whereas the grounds themselves will have to be, first of all, composted and dissolved a bit into the soil for the plants to uptake those nutrients. And again, if the plants touch that coffee, it might burn them, I've heard. So you might just want to watch that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you feel like, oh shoot, maybe I put too much coffee and it's too late to mix, heavily water your plants every day. And what that'll do is help rinse out some of that extra coffee grounds and nitrogen. So they might lessen the impact of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now basil's tough to get started. Well, boy, once it's started, it's tough to keep up with. So if all your basil comes up, you'll have a lot. Because
Yeah.
I saw at least 30 plants in there. So
Yeah.
you'll have a tough time managing it. You might have to move them into a deeper, larger container too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think actually, if you go to the home centers these days, you might be able to find some baby basil plants if you wanted to try it again.
Yeah, you
just in
can.
case.
And we started these actually from seeds, not too long ago.
Nice work, Raj. Looking
Wow.
good.
It's all Nina.
I was going to say, that looks like Nina's green thumb.
Yeah.
So let me ask you,
But we
why are your plant containers outside of their catch trays?
so those catch trays actually used to be where we had some seedlings sitting on them, and
Okay.
then we were sitting on them, and then we didn't put them back on them. But to the other couple, just outside, we haven't done much with the basil, and they just grow like crazy. So they get a ton of sun, and they're out in the elements, and we haven't done anything to the soil. So they seem to have been thriving without too much attention.
Raj, let me ask you a few questions for everybody else. What did you fill your containers with? Just potting soil? from your
The
home center?
containers, they have we did some kind of rocks at the very base, and then just a kind of normal fertilized soil. So we got
potting
everything
soil?
from the home center. So it was just potting soil.
Okay.
And then that's about it. And then we got some plant food also that we put on a little while ago. Nina knows way more than I, but I did witness all this stuff happening.
And how often are you watering those?
But yeah, it was.
Hmm.
We are watering almost every day, every other day, just because they're in direct sunlight, and so they were getting pretty dry. The rains lately have been doing all the watering, so we haven't actually done anything in a handful of days. It's been so much rain, but we've actually picked quite a bit from them and been using the basil already, and it just seems to come back so fast. So
Nice.
I think once you guys
Great.
get them outside in the sun, I think that you'll be in good shape.
Okay.
Thanks, Raj.
Oh,
Okay,
sure.
well, I'm afraid we're out of
it's the
time.
one thing I could help.
No, you did, man. This is growing, man. We all help each other. Thank you very much. Thanks for the good questions, Momoya and Chiara. Also, if there's anybody else with a quick question, I can take it. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off. It's after noon. So anybody else have a question? I'm sorry, not Chiara, Chirag. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. Apologize for that. No more questions? Okay, well, everybody, I want to say a big, yeah, it's nice and cool under this bridge. It's definitely going to be our swimming place today. So, but thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks for you at home who might watch this on YouTube. Please tune in again and check out our other videos at Midori Farm on YouTube, and check out our website for more information. And don't be afraid to get started growing some stuff yourself at home in containers, or getting a little plot, or digging up your backyard, or even starting a full-time farm, because it really is the best thing, and you'll find your lifestyle changes immensely for the better. Have a great day, and hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.